want to thank you again for speaking with me on this topic. We are doing a whole summer series about shark finning and just the dangers that sharks are facing, especially with Shark Week going on right now. It's kind of in the spotlight. So I'll
hmm
go ahead and let you get started with introductions. If you could just give me like your name, the name of your organization, and like the title that you hold within the organization, and a brief mission statement.
My name is David McGuire. I am the founder and director of the nonprofit Shark Stewards. We are based in Berkeley, California, but we work internationally in tracking and regulating the shark fin trade, as well as combating overfishing, particularly of endangered and vulnerable species of sharks and rays.
What are some specifically vulnerable species of sharks that you all focus on?
Well, we've been focusing in the past few years on the shark behind me, the oceanic whitetip, once the most abundant large vertebrate in the ocean, now approximately less than 5% remaining. So sharks that used to be present in the global temperate and tropic oceans in the millions are now number in the thousands, primarily due to the shark fin trade. We also work in protecting hammerhead sharks in Mexico, silky sharks, and a lot of these sharks are getting entrained in commercial fisheries for tuna, but end up getting killed for their fins and end up in the wildlife trade.
That is shocking how the numbers have dwindled. How long has Shark Stewards been working in the field?
We were founded in 2001 on an expedition, actually, which was the inspiration, where I documented shark finning. Actually ended up making a film, a documentary called Shark Stewards of the Reef. And at the time, very little was being done about the shark fin trade for shark fin soup being exported primarily to China, but also to Asian Americans, Asian Canadians, Asian Western Europeans for the luxury shark fin soup. So we really formalized in 2006. So we've been going strong, and our original mission was to educate but also regulate the shark fin trade, which we actually did in the town of Tiburon in Marin. Tiburon is Spanish for shark, and it was the first shark fin trade ban that I know of, and a condemnation of sales and consumption of shark fin soup. But we went on to work in Hawaii, California, Western states, and then eventually President Biden signed the Shark Fin Sales Elimination Act in 2022, banning the sale and trade of shark fin from the US and in the US. And so over those decades, 2 decades, we've worked in increasing shark finning regulations, actually fisheries killing sharks for their fins, only for their fins, which is cruel and wasteful, but really focusing also on targeted catch and bycatch, particularly of threatened species, of which number now around 37% are threatened or vulnerable to extinction.
Why is there a market for shark fin soup? What is the allure behind shark fin soup?
Well, the shark fin soup is really a symbol of wealth and prosperity and generosity. It dates back to the Sung Dynasty 1,000 years ago, so it's associated with all of this prestige and nobility. It's a sign of wealth, but it's really about a sign of economics. So China underwent dramatic changes in the past, well, 30 years. We went from the age of communism to the age of social capitalism. So there are more middle-class Chinese and more middle class in the world in China, more people who have the wherewithal to spend for luxury items. And then that association kind of spawned outside of China and resonated to areas like Singapore, Malaysia, Victoria, Canada, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, some of the hubs of large Chinese American or Chinese, that is, heritage throughout the world. And so this dish is served at banquets, at weddings, at occasions of celebration and honor, the Lunar New Year, And it's essentially economics. There are not enough sharks in the ocean to supply this sudden demand. And so it's not like Chinese are bad people. In most cases, the Chinese consumers are ignorant. They have no idea what they're eating or what this dish is creating and resonating and impacting in ecosystems across the planet.
That is, something that we don't think about here in America, of course, is, eating shark fins often, like what that would never really cross our minds. So that is just something for our viewers so that they know what shark fin soup really is and what it means. You mentioned Biden signing a anti-finning policy and working with other organizations to get policy passed. Is that what Shark Stewards focuses on, is policy change, or what other methods do you guys employ to help save sharks and help conserve species?
We originally started focusing on policy. We were one of the first groups to really hone in on the shark fin trade, but of course, awareness is critical to that. So producing documentaries, social media, articles is important to raise the general alarm about how dire the consequences are when we lose sharks and how dramatically these populations are declining. Not only because of shark finning, which is widely condemned and illegal in most countries now, the actual practice of finning and discarding the shark just for the fins. It still occurs in what's called IUU, or illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, but it's also occurs on the high seas where fishing or illegal practices are enacted with impunity. The finning really came up around the 2000s. President Clinton signed the Shark Finning Act. Obama strengthened it. Finning itself is highly reduced, but despite the regulations and shark finning, we're still fishing too many sharks. We're landing too many sharks. 1/3 of all sharks and rays are threatened with extinction because of this, either direct killing or as bycatch. So we're eating too many sharks, we're catching too many sharks for their oil, or we just don't care and we discard them when we're targeting tuna or swordfish. So regulation is critical. We do work in large-scale regional fisheries management organizations under the United Nations, particularly for oceanic white-tip sharks right now, trying to reduce kill of the most critically endangered sharks before they disappear. But we also work in protecting the ocean, so creating marine protected areas in California, working with communities, Native Americans in California, up in Northern California, also here in Hawaii, where I am now, trying to develop a community-based model of marine management so that you protect the reef, you protect the invertebrates, you protect the fish, so that people can survive, so that the ocean can thrive, and that even support an economic base through either dive tourism or just enjoyment of healthy ocean ecosystems. But you need a whole system. You can't just protect one species at a time. We need to look at protecting more of our oceans through these marine protected areas. And that's a big part of our policy work.
What are some ways that shark bycatch can be decreased?
Yeah, great question. There's the Marine Stewardship Council that authorizes fisheries or checks them out for sustainability. Seafood Watch with the Monterey Aquarium is a good app or card to look at if it's green, red, or yellow, depending on how those fish are caught. In general, if you're eating an apex predator like a swordfish or a tuna, there will be bycatch associated. There are no truly clean fisheries. One of the things that we have been working on, it started here in Hawaii and it went to the Western Pacific. We're now working in the Eastern Pacific and in the Indian Ocean to reduce bycatch through gear changes. For example, the oceanic white-tip sharks can bite through monofilament, but they can't bite through wire. So Hawaii, starting with Hawaiian Longline Association, replace these wire leaders with monofilament so that these sharks can actually break free and swim away. Hook changes so that sharks can actually bend the hook or break free. There are practices that can be applied that will reduce bycatch, and that's happening primarily in the US. The big problem with our seafood in the United States is 80% of our seafood is imported. So if you actually are eating domestic seafood, you're helping local fishermen, but we're also the most regulated fisheries in the world. So although not perfect, we are trying to maintain healthy stocks of fish and also reduce the impacts on other wildlife. Imports from China are among the worst. One of the things we are working on is targeting importers and to track our fish from essentially the ocean to the plate. So where does your seafood come from? Maybe sometimes we shouldn't be eating swordfish or tuna, eating less seafood, asking where it comes from is a big thing that any consumer can do. Clearly not eating shark fin soup, which is unsustainable, impacting not only sharks, but other organisms in the ocean through the loss of those ecosystem services and functionality that sharks provide. So there's a lot of things the consumer can do. Asking is the first thing. Educating is really important. Making some simple choices to reduce the impacts on the ocean.
What regions or countries do you think are having the most success in shark conservations, and which ones are struggling a little more?
The US and Canada really have been leaders in shark conservation. In the EU, post-Brexit, UK automatically put in shark fin sailed exports. The EU is the largest exporter to Asia now of shark fins, particularly Spain being the worst. Over half the fins in the EU come from Spain. In the Pacific and Indo-Pacific, Indonesia is the worst. They're the largest shark killers. They're also the largest shark fin exporters. You know, in the Eastern Pacific, Costa Rica, they're terrible. They're green on the outside, but red on the inside. They're killing thousands of sharks, including endangered hammerhead sharks, and exporting them either across border to other countries to export to China or directly to China. And we can actually vote with our dollars as tourists and not go to countries like Indonesia or Costa Rica or tell them we're not going to go because we disagree with your fishing practice, which was also associated with human rights and social justice and human justice, because a lot of these fisheries are associated with slavery, cruelty to the crewmen, cruelty to animals. So, you know, who are the bad actors? Well, just about every country has bad practices. Some countries have to do it through necessity. For example, West Africa, these artisanal fisheries are starting to starve these communities in Ghana because large Chinese fleets are being licensed or allowed or poaching the offshore or nearshore fisheries and impacting local communities. So these industrial fishers are impacting local fishing communities and impacting their livelihoods as well as their actual lives. So industrial scale fishing is really impacting our oceans. China is the largest distant water fleet. Hundreds, almost 1,000 large ships are fishing all around the planet. And a lot of that fish finds its way into the United States, either through fish sticks, through other forms of fish that have no clear identity of what that fish actually is or where it came from. So there's a lot of work that we can do and we are doing, including the US, to apply pressure to China, which is the largest fishing nation on the high seas, and through trade barriers.
That's so interesting to think that shark conservation and human rights issues go hand in hand. So we did talk about how you guys engage with local and indigenous communities all around the world. How do you guys in particular accomplish this, and how do you maintain this inclusivity?
Well, we have kind of a chapter-based organization based on need. So we work in Singapore and Malaysia, because they are also English-speaking countries that are international trading, wealthy countries that are near China and also serve as major trade hubs to China, particularly for shark fin. And that's a really important way to impact not only the flow of the wildlife trade, in this case, shark fins or manta ray gill rakers, but also to impact the consumers. And we do a lot of that through the universities and with youth or through grassroots communities. So we help form something called the Sabah Shark Protection Association in Malaysia. We work with students at the National University of Singapore, collecting data on shark fin consumption and sales in Singapore, because a lot of that flows to mainland China, but also a lot of Chinese tourists come to those countries to consume wildlife. We're one of the very few organizations that are working overseas, and a lot of our work also is media production. So we have a new film called Kahumano, which is filmed in Hawaii, and it features Hawaiian culture and cultural connectivity to sharks and how they're applied to conservation using traditional knowledge. We try to do that in Asia as well by Asians using short media form in Chinese. And so most of that media never makes the mainstream here in the West, but we're hoping it has a big impact, particularly on potentially young consumers of shark fin or shark products. So there's a big impact we can have that's virtually unseen in the West. Their social media channels are much different from ours. They don't have TikTok. Well, I guess they do, but it's not as big as Weibo, WeChat, these other online media forums that are used primarily by Asians and for entertainment, but also for impact. So there's a big way we can influence people that we don't see here in the West. Of course, Chinese Americans are a very important part of our culture, an important part of our demography. We value their culture. We appreciate their perspectives. We can actually learn from them here, which is one of the big things and one of the first things we did at Shark Stewards when we were working in San Francisco and Los Angeles Chinatowns, is to engage our Chinese and AAPI audience to learn from them and also have them represent their culture and tell their culture that we need sharks. We need sharks in the ocean, not in a bowl of soup. So engaging local communities is critical.
Which project or campaign within your organization are you most proud of?
Our foundation was really based on documenting the health of coral reefs associated with sharks and documenting reefs that did not have sharks. And that's with a scientific team that really spawned Shark Stewards. And we learned to advocate for the first shark fin trade bans in the world. And so I'm proud of the storytelling, the message telling. So I guess what I'm most proud of is our evolution. Nobody really knew about shark fin soup and the shark fin trade 25 years ago. It wasn't on our radar, but it was on the international market. Now people are largely aware, but we still have a long way to go to, I think, reverence and respect their impacts on our ocean ecosystems and ocean health. And I guess in our small way, either through our documentaries, our YouTube channel, but mostly our advocacy, day by day, 25 years until the end of my life, helping save sharks and raise awareness that we need healthy oceans, and sharks are symbols of ocean health.
That's definitely something to be proud of. The growth over 25 years is incredible. And you guys have really done some awesome work. If someone were to want to get involved with your organization or with, shark conservation just to get into the field, what would you say, what would your advice be for them?
Well, we're largely a volunteer organization, originally starting through looking at trade, import, exports to see where we should work and then finding people who are passionate about sharks, which is why we work in Singapore and Malaysia. We don't work in Hong Kong because there are some really great groups already working there. But looking at need, but also looking at passion. So we have hundreds of volunteers across the globe, including India now. And it's largely driven by young people reaching us through our social media or through our website at sharkstewards.org. And then I tried to see how we can accommodate them by providing information, providing tools, ways that people can take action. We have biweekly calls with people from all over who provide content, guest blogs. We have a petition right now to these international tuna regional fisheries management organizations to save the endangered, critically endangered oceanic white tip. So our voices can have a huge impact, telling our governments to regulate the wildlife trade, that we need to lean on these import exporters. And so wherever we live, wherever we are, whatever we do, we can take time out of our day to contribute our passion and our knowledge, particularly now in the age of social media. So doing a TikTok on why we should save sharks, writing a post for Shark Stewards, doing a short video and putting it on YouTube and sharing that message that sharks are important for the future of the ocean, and we all rely on the future of the ocean. If we want humans to thrive and survive, we need a healthy ocean.